Great. So listen, delighted to be here, and thanks for the invite. I hope you're all enjoying the session so far. I must say I really enjoyed the initial speakers and some inspirational stuff there from some of the stuff that Matthew's doing. So as I said, I'm founder of Digital Learning Institute. We're one of the global leaders in digital learning education and certification. But very much our mission is around elevating standards in online learning. And we run a number of qualifications in this area. So I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the use of micro-learning in scenario-based learning. So as part of our one of our main programs, we throw our students into case studies. So we put them in, you've just been appointed as an instructional designer, or you've just been appointed as a learning designer in this particular company or in this university, and your challenge is to, and you have to go through. And so what we've done is we've created a series of challenges that flow throughout the program. And what we've tried to do is convert some of those scenarios or convert some of those challenges into mini scenarios, or let's call them micro scenarios. Okay. So before I'll obviously walk you through that, but just to set the scene a little bit. And generally speaking, I suppose when you're looking at learning design, you're not going to make a decision straight away that I'm going to do micro learning. That's probably down the line a little bit. So I guess when we're looking at our programs, or when we're talking to our students about this, your initial decision is what's the correct mode of delivery here for this particular program. And that's going to be based on your personas. Your learner personas is going to be based on your learning objectives. It's going to be based on your curriculum. It's going to be based on the problem that you're trying to solve. And the type of modes that you're going to consider. Is it going to be a fully digital experience? Is it going to be cohort based? Is it going to be in the classroom? To what extent are we going to use technology in the classroom? Is it going to be hybrid, where maybe you're using digital learning with the classroom, and there could be an element of pre-work or flipped classroom at that? Or if you're working in a university, you might see a lot of kind of high flex learning, where some people are online, some people are in a physical room. Maybe you're looking at how you might integrate immersive learning into that as well. So when we're bringing our students through, I suppose the decisions they have to make, one of the first decisions you're looking at is your mode of delivery. Okay. And then when you drill into that, then after that, then you're going to need to start thinking about what your modalities are. What are my teaching and learning tactics or approaches going to be based on that? And as a lot of people here would know, you're going to have your options around synchronous learning, which is your live events or your facilitator-led sessions that are happening in real time. You're going to have your asynchronous learning, which is more out of sync with a facilitator. It possibly might be more self-paced learning. You may have some element of social learning where learners are collaborating peer-to-peer and could be involved in a community of practice. They could be showcasing and reflecting on project work. And you may then be looking to integrate some modalities around immersive learning, whether that's virtual reality or augmented reality, particularly if you're doing things like high flex learning. So I guess when we position micro learning, then it's it typically is in that asynchronous space, okay, where you're giving people access to learning or to resources or to knowledge at a specific point and at the point of need. And it's always and I guess the relevance of that is really important. So when you look at that, the type of things that we look at when we're looking at micro learning, you've got things like infographics, short instructional videos, and there's obviously different types of videos as well. You might have interactive videos, animated videos. You may have short podcasts. You probably argue that maybe podcasts aren't necessarily micro resources, but they can be positioned like that depending on how they're designed. And what we started to do a lot more of, particularly in the last year, and we've used 7TAPS quite extensively to do this because it's a really great tool just for particularly for things like toolkits and case studies. So we've particularly looked at the case studies that we've been running on our programs, and to what extent can we convert them, as opposed to having one big scenario. Let's have a load of mini scenarios and try to create personas and characters around those scenarios. Okay, so I'm going to specifically, look at that now to a certain extent. So as I said, within our particular program, we have two underpinning case studies. One is a higher education case study. One is a corporate learning case study. You've been appointed to a role, you have a series of challenges to do, and then what does that look like? Okay, so the approach that we take, regardless of whether it's micro or not, when you're designing scenario-based learning, really what that is about is throwing people into situations or contextual situations where they have to make a decision. Okay, and typically when it's asynchronous or you're not doing it in the classroom, you have to pre-design the choices that they have to make, because if I'm a trainer or facilitator and I'm not in a live session, if I am in a live session, I can give them the choices. So I can say, listen, or they can discuss the choices themselves. But if you're in an asynchronous or self-paced scenario, you need to think, wait, what's the challenge that I'm going to give them, okay, in this particular area, and then what are the potential choices that they can make. Okay, so I can take this course of action, this course of action, or this course of action, for example. Okay, and I guess what you need to be thinking of doing as well as designers, and if you're particularly with microlearning, is what are the consequences to each of those decisions, which is essentially feedback. Okay, so what feedback are you going to give them? How are you going to give that feedback? What would it look like? Because that's what scaffolds people through the learning experience, and that's what scaffolds people through a series of challenges. So I guess what we've been doing with this is taking each of these challenge, choice, consequence, which is a basic kind of 3C model for designing scenario-based learning, but then I suppose chunking that up into micro learning resources. So previously what we would have done was we would have had all these challenges in the one place. Okay, so as a student, I go to the case study and I go through each of the challenges one after the other. So there isn't that sense that they've been broken up. What we've done now, and I guess essentially using microlearning, is we've chopped up all those challenges into microlearning resources. So our learners and students are able to go into them at specific times, and we're able to make them much more contextual then, okay? And they can get their feedback, move on, go back to it and go again, okay? And we're finding that really, really useful. And the other benefit of that then is we can also take them out of, let's say, the program that we're doing and use them in other places as well. And that's always one of the big benefits of microlearning, is that you're designing it for a course initially, but the more chunked up and the more, I suppose, access to microlearning resources you have, the more you can use them in other contexts as well, maybe outside a course. So for example, we use an awful lot of these now as part of our CPD program, which is like a flexible program that students can do and dip in and out of. And that's kind of for learners to access at the point of need. So you're in work and you're looking to get access to some quick information. I could go to this particular resource that I may have seen on a course, but now is available to me at the point of need. So that's kind of, I suppose, our approach to the design of it. And what I'll do now is I'll just kind of bring you through. The way this works is with this is we have the overall case study with the corporate one. There's a series. We've 10 modules on the program, and every module is broken down into a series of lessons. So every lesson has a challenge. Okay, so for example, there's 5 lessons in each of the modules. So they're doing 5 challenges. Okay, so and each challenge is a separate 7 TAPS resource, if that makes sense. So we've used 7 TAPS as our tool to create all these micro scenarios. I just put up I'm going to show you the resource here in a second, but the QR code is there if you want to have a quick look at it as well, because I know everyone's been really great at sharing QR codes, which is great. So I'll just jump into the I'll put that back up in a second as well, but I just want to jump into the actual resource, if that makes sense. Okay, is that up there on the screen? Hopefully it is.
Yep, yeah, it's on the screen.
Oh, great. Okay, so this is just an example of one of the scenarios. Okay, so as I said, at this stage, the learners are aware of the case study, so they're aware that they're in a particular role. They have the context. So to give you a bit of insight into this particular one, they're working in a large retailer. Kind of an outlet store. They've been appointed as an instructional designer to redesign the onboarding or the induction program for this particular organization. Okay, and you have to go through a series of challenges, right from diagnosing or what the problem is with the induction program, looking at the existing induction program, talking to stakeholders. So we've used 7 TAPS first to create all the characters that are in the case study. So you are the person assigned, but the other characters are going to be the learning and development manager. There'll be a character that's going to be, let's say, the subject matter expert. There'll be a character that might be part of your team as an e-learning developer. And the cool thing about 7 TAPS is you can bring these characters to life now. And particularly with some of the AI features within 7 TAPS, it's quite easy to kind of give our learners both kind of text-based feedback, but also video-based learning as well. So this challenge is early on. Okay, so and it's all about applying the concepts that they've just learned. So you see there, the case study is actually Annie's department store. So it's a department store scenario. They've already got a sense of the case study. They've gone through a particular module, and now we've thrown them into one of these mini scenarios. So now we've also given them access here to go back and look at the case study. Okay, so if you need to go back and review the brief, they can link back to somewhere like here, which is the full brief for the case study, and they can go through that and just make sure that they've got all the context right. Okay. And then, okay, so the overall sense, your first week at NE's department store, your first step is to schedule individual meetings with key stakeholders for the induction program. This would help you to understand expectations and roles in the project. So the first person they're meeting is Mary, who's head of talent development, and she's responsible. And your first task is to discuss the parameters of the design with Mary. Okay, so this is Mary. Now, again, really great that you can kind of create these. So there's a video of Mary here now talking about her role as head of talent development in NE's and what her expectations are of the redesign of the program. So that kind of gives you a sense then about the type of conversations that you might have. So what we have then from there is, and these are kind of answered at this stage, but we have a series of questions like how would you work through this conversation with Mary, for example? So the first question here is, what mode of delivery would you recommend for the induction programs? And then, they can choose between some of the modes that I just showed you earlier, and then we're giving them feedback on that. And they essentially then feed through another series of questions. So it's equipping them, I guess, to help them with the potential questions that Mary might ask them in a meeting, but equally the type of, I suppose, advice or feedback or information that they need to present to Mary as someone who's head of talent development. What kind of questions might she ask? Okay, and when you go in to have your conversation with the subject matter expert, that might be something to, as well. Now, all these questions are based on concepts that they would have covered on the course, so it is, I suppose, to a certain extent, testing their knowledge, but it's also giving them a sense of, what do typical scenarios look like when you're in a project of this nature. Okay, and so they go through that, and I guess from there, then the next scenario will be the conversation, possibly, let's say, with the subject matter expert, like I said as well. Okay, so that's how we've used it, and we're getting really good feedback from our students on it. We find like 7 taps is really great because you can do these quite quickly to a certain extent. So we're always able to update them. We're always able to update the personas really quickly as well. I suppose having the challenges or the scenarios chopped up as well means that our students are doing these really quickly. Like you're getting through this in 5 minutes or less. But if you want to go deeper, then you can branch off into other areas. And when they finish the module, then they'll be put into kind of a simulation, an immersive simulation, where they'll be having what will feel like a real life conversation with the stakeholders. But these mini scenarios are designed to equip you for that final challenge at the end. Okay, right. Okay, so that's an overview. I might just stop there because I'm just conscious I'm probably getting close to my time. Make sure I'm still here. Cool. Is that making sense to everyone?
It does. I'm watching in the chat, and yes, absolutely. And this was another one where I got to say, I could probably just sit and listen to you talk about it, John, for the rest of the afternoon. So if you don't have plans, I mean, I've got some time. I can sit and we can chit chat. So no, I think that was awesome. I saw a lot of questions about the podcasting and how you are integrating that in. So were there any challenges with that one in particular?
Yeah, like I think the podcast, what we're doing is we're, I suppose, introducing audio into the scenarios. It's mainly about kind of giving people choice in terms of how they want to engage with the content. And again, like obviously with 7 taps as well, your ability to localize the content or translate the content is really easy, to a certain extent. And that's one of the benefits of the audio is like, it's all about accessibility, right? Like, so the more choice that you give people, whether it's audio or visual or text-based, that just increases the accessibility, which improves the experience for people on it. And that's, regardless of whether you're designing scenarios or any type of digital content, the more choice you give people, the more accessible it's going to be, and it's going to improve the learning experience. So, and I think 7 taps, I suppose the features it has now allows you to do that, which is really great.
Love it.